Welcome everyone to this webinar brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Habitchonistim. IDSF is the leading Israeli organization advocating for strong strategic national security-oriented policies. Our movement consists of more than 20,000 people here in Israel, including many reserve officers and operators from all branches of the Israel Defense establishment, who believe that strong national security and staunch Zionism are necessary for Israel to be the eternal homeland of the Jewish people. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into these war briefings. It is so important that we are able to share these updates and analysis with you. We are joined today for this briefing by Or Yissachar, the head of the research department at IDSF. Or has joined us a good number of times in the past in these briefings, and he's back today to give a deep dive into the day after scenarios. After Hamas has been neutralized in the Gaza Strip, what could possibly happen there? Or, thank you so much for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Moshe. Thank you so much. So let me first start by saying it's great to have you here today with us. I'm currently in Jerusalem. We are having really, fierce days of fighting over there in Gaza, our combatant troops, and the Air Force is working very hard, and as well as the troops on the ground. I'm sure you all know we've had this unfortunate event on Friday, where we had 3 hostages accidentally shot after they had been mistaken to be Hamas operatives, terrorists. This is, of course, heartbreaking. Especially, I can tell you personally that when I participated in TV panels together with the mother of one of the hostages who was shot to death, unfortunately, Yotam Chaim, and his mother was very vocal, and she touched every Israeli's heart. And this is simply one of those things where you just wonder. These are tragedies that happen in the battlefield. There was a post published by one of the officers in the field who protected a good name of the soldiers who did it, saying that these are people over for some 80 days they're there. They wake up to the sound of bomb shells, and they haven't seen home for over 2 months, and they're under complete and total stress and vigilance. And so this kind of situation is simply a tragedy. It can happen. I can see that we're joined by Amir Avivi. So the question is if we want to continue to our topic now, or
Yeah, or let's pause for a second before you really get
sure.
into it. And it's a great privilege to be joined by Brigadier General Amir Avivi, who is traveling but is joining us right now. And General, many people have asked if you can really address what Or just mentioned about the tragic killing of those hostages and the rules of engagement in Gaza, to include that in your briefing and your update today, please.
Yes. So, as we all know, we are dealing with a very vicious terror organization that, among other things, is really utilizing its society, which most of it is completely aligned and helping the terrorists in the fight. So, what we're seeing basically the IDF holding the area in the northern part of Gaza Strip. We see terrorists in civilian without weapons approaching near IDF posts, knowing that basically if we don't see a weapon, we usually don't shoot. So what they do, they get close to spot the soldiers, and then they direct snipers and other terrorists to attack them. All the so-called civilians that we caught were terrorists. Also, we see, for example, women that call soldiers, try to attract them, and once the soldiers get near, they get shot. We see terrorists pretending to be hostages and shouting in Hebrew, "Help!" And then when the soldiers want to approach and help, they get killed. So and of course, we see terrorists popping out of houses and from the tunnels in different locations and attacking our soldiers. And as you see, we have every day soldiers killed. They are operating in a very, very, very complicated environment. And in this context, the event that we saw of the hostages that were from afar trying to approach the soldiers, and the soldiers thought it's terrorists, occurred. Now, obviously, the rules of engagement are that if somebody surrenders or they don't have a weapon, you need to check. You usually don't shoot. But as I said, the environment is extremely complicated. And the IDF is really trying to learn the lessons and do whatever is needed to do to try to minimize this kind of events. And of course, we want our hostages alive and safe. And it's a main mission in this war. But I think that anybody who is not fighting now in Gaza and his life is in danger, is being shot from everywhere, and is also dealing with civilians that are fully assisting the terrorists, or it's terrorists disguising as civilians, including women, is not understanding how really complicated the reality on the ground is. So it's a real tragedy, and definitely I hope the lessons will be learned, but it's not going to make things less complicated than they already are, and they are very complicated. Moshe?
Thank you, General. We're going to go back now to Or.
Yes.
Who is giving the deep dive into the day after scenarios for Gaza. Or, please.
Thank you. So we were asked today to go over scenarios for the day after in Gaza, and I'd like to take you maybe to a dilemma. Okay, so the question is what to do with Gaza in the day after, I think really depends on what kind of risks you're willing to take. And number two, what lessons you already learned in the past. And I think many times we often hear the ideas that simply tell us go back to your comfort zone, that to fall back to the familiar place where you know that it is already, it's bad enough, but well, let's just say it's a familiar bad. It's not a new bad. What do I mean by that? Let me just try to explain it in with other terms. I don't know if you know, but I'm also a pianist. And my new piano teacher 10 years ago, he told me, well, in one of our first lessons, he said, well, he noticed how I raise my shoulders every time I make, I reach, some sort of a difficult passage. And it really radiates stress, the body does that, and it doesn't help you play in any way. But that's a habit. And at one point, I prefer to preserve the bad habit than learning new habits that I'm not familiar of. And he said, well, sometimes we know our bad habits, we fall in love with them even because the better habits are unfamiliar. But if you learn and do what I tell you, I'll assure you that you'll play much better. You'll get rid of a lot of unnecessary stress and so on. And that's what I did, and it worked like magic. But the point is that our bad habits are not always the answer. And what I mean by that is going back to past solutions, such as the Palestinian Authority in Gaza. That's what the point I'm trying to make, is not going to take us anywhere, even though it's familiar. Now, let me lay down 3 scenarios for you that I think could be useful, and I'll use probably this map just for illustration purposes. Can you see Google Maps, Moshe?
Yeah, we see it. We see it.
Oh, okay, amazing. So this is the Gaza Strip. Let's imagine 3 scenarios for the day after in Gaza. Scenario number 1, and again, the day after, as General Avivi always says, it really depends on our accomplishments in the battlefield. When we talk about the day after in Gaza, it's only after, which means after Israel, once Israel accomplishes its goals, number one, destroying Hamas, number two, releasing the hostages. Then we can talk about the day after. So scenario number one is that Israel has full control over the Gaza Strip, basically occupy it, exercises full control over it. It manages the Gaza Strip like in the civil administration days before the Oslo Accords, before 1993, where you had a military officer that is working with I don't know, local mayors and etc. and has to authorize every construction and every movement, etc. And really, Israel exercises both civil and security control over the Gaza Strip, and it's basically the sovereign. I wouldn't recommend that. It's probably not going to take us Israel anywhere, both in the international level and the political level. We are already dealing with tough questions in Judea and Samaria as to the kind of military control that Israel exercises both on Jews and Arabs. I got to tell you, even Israeli citizens of Judea and Samaria, in many cases, in many aspects, have to go through military procedures. So that wouldn't be a long-term solution. Military control is always a temporary solution. So scenario number two is obviously bringing the Palestinian Authority back to Gaza. And I have to tell you that this is really the main point that I'd like to rebuttal, because I have read a lot of publications that the international community already recognizes the Palestinian Authority as the legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. They already signed agreements with Israel. They're already a familiar actor. And they got a big advantage because the Biden administration today, the United States government, basically, what the US is telling Israel is that we are encouraging a solution where a revitalized Palestinian Authority, so-called revitalized Palestinian Authority, will be given the keys to Gaza. And while appreciative of everything the United States does for Israel, it's not, one can chew a gum and walk in the same time. So, of course, the US is a key strategic ally to Israel, but at the same time, it is wrong about the Palestinian Authority. It is not the solution to Gaza. And I'll tell you very, very briefly why. We published a paper that Moshe, I think we probably shared with our audience in the past already. This paper over here that basically asked the question why the Palestinian Authority cannot govern Gaza. We really lay out here everything you need to know, but the main point is, one, Palestinian Authority is no friend of Israel. It is a strategic threat. It is not a friend. The famous phrase that there is no partner because Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority are now actively hostile toward Israel by doing three things. First of all, they radicalize the population. They have entire education programs, like you see here on the map. This is so-called the map of Palestine. The entire state of Israel, including Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Haifa. This is from a Palestinian textbook. On the left side, you see the sort of propaganda cartoons. I'm sure you've seen them already in one of my previous presentations by Fatah, the Palestinian Authority, inciting the population to murder Jews, etc. So they remain committed to the armed struggle. They're not a peace actor. Number two, the PA pays terrorists. Okay, I'm sure you're familiar with Pay for Slay, the Taylor Force Act. Basically, if you murder a Jew and you enter into Israeli prison, you get a monthly stipend that simply gets you get paid more and more as long as time goes by. So, for example, that's the kind of salary, almost $4,000 a month. Palestinian terrorists that serves over 30 years and above is being paid, as opposed to, for example, Palestinian teachers, engineers, etc. So they're not incentivizing Palestinians to have proper occupations, such as being teachers and engineers, but to be terrorists. Needless to say, terrorists who are killed in action, their families get the stipends as well. And number three, the PA is leading the delegitimization campaign against Israel around the world. Okay, the BDS protesting campuses you see in the United States, all the BDS activity, where they sue Israel in The Hague, in the ICC, all this is led by the Palestinian Authority. So every time you see, for example, like a BDS or an anti-Israel or Free Palestine march, there is a big chance the Palestinian Authority is behind it, with a vast network of organizations that it established back almost 30 years ago. But you also see how the Palestinian Authority reacted to October 7. I'll just touch upon, two brief anecdotes that might help you. One is that really Fatah members participated in the October 7 attacks. They even took pride in it. As you can see here, the yellow scarf indicates Fatah, Mahmoud Abbas, right, the Palestinian Authority, as opposed to a green scarf that indicates Hamas. So they pride themselves for taking part in the October 7 attacks. And if that wasn't bad enough, PA officials, including Mahmoud Abbas, the president, Mohammed Ashtaya, the prime minister, all these people, as well as prominent politicians, openly, if not openly, support Hamas, encourage Hamas, say they should be part of the future government alongside the Palestinian Authority. They say that they are praiseworthy and they actually are, twilights and stars in the sky of the Palestinian struggle. And some of officials say we should do the same in Judea and Samaria, so-called the West Bank. That's what the PA is saying. So it's true that Israel is cooperating with it, but I don't think this is a responsible actor for Gaza. So if we're going back to the map, so no Palestinian Authority and no Israeli military control. Maken, as we say in Hebrew, what should we do? And I'll let you into a secret. Israel has been very, very good at saying what we should not do as opposed to what we should do. And if I may, let's take a minute and then we'll open up to questions to envision what should happen in Gaza. First of all, the entire Gaza Strip should be, the IDF, Israel, should have full military freedom of operation. We should be able to get into every house, arrest every suspect, exactly like we're doing in Nablus and in Ramallah today. This is how we prevent all of these, Hamas terror nests from metastasizing. That we haven't done that in Gaza for 20 years. This is exactly why we had like an empire of terrorism over there. And after we have full military freedom of operation, we got to make sure that no weapons are smuggled into Gaza. As you can see here, the vast network of tunnels in the Rafah crossing, this, what they call a Philadelphia route to the Gaza-Egypt border, is teeming with underground tunnels. And when you say a tunnel, it's not just, a narrow, underground passage. These are underground cities where trucks even can drive through. Even, tracks with like sort of train-like deliveries. So all these things must be stopped by the IDF permanently. And then what we envision is to have an international directorate with the participation of Israel, the United States, even pragmatic Arab countries like Saudi Arabia that could open up to peace normalization as part of the package, participating in the future of Gaza. The directorate will run the reconstruction efforts. It will run the international money flowing into Gaza that makes sure that it goes to education and to, building up power plants and all of these things, and not to terrorism. And will manage, and every Palestinian mayor that is not Hamas nor Fatah, Palestinian mayors will work with that directorate. And this is probably a good interim solution. But again, as I said, I don't think we should talk about solution as much as we should talk about arrangements. Solution would mean that Palestinians shake hands with Israelis and say we recognize your right to exist in the state of Israel as the Jewish state. Since it's not going to happen anytime soon, I think we should talk about arrangements. And most of all, we should talk about education, denazification of the Gaza Strip from all UN and Hamas, I'm not saying it lightly, but UN and Hamas anti-Semitic propaganda in the schools, in the manuals. They should all be thrown to the trash bin. Look what the United Arab Emirates did, the UAE, Dubai, what they did in their education system. It's simply inspiring, and they can definitely be part of the future of Gaza as well. And I believe we should open up to questions. Let's see.
Thank you so much, Or, and thank you to everyone who has sent me an overwhelming number of questions. So, Or, I'll ask this question to start off with, and I believe General Avivi is still on the line. So, if he is, maybe he'll chime in. In terms of the IDF freedom of operation in Judea and Samaria, General Avivi has shared with us many a times that it's specifically the Jewish towns and cities in Judea and Samaria that allows the IDF to have the
Right.
freedom of movement in the region. So, in terms of Gaza, if moving forward there is going to be some level of operational capacity in Gaza, does that necessitate Jewish towns being there, or is it possible to be able to have a military control, keep terrorism down without reestablishing the Jewish settlements in Gaza?
So maybe Moshe, I'll address this. All talked about the need for freedom of operation of the IDF in the Gaza Strip, but there is also the need to control the Egyptian border, where all the weapons and know-how and the capabilities are coming into the Gaza Strip in huge amounts. And it's not just about controlling the border itself. You need to control a whole area, let's say Rafah. Controlling an area like that and also maintaining a freedom of operation forever. This is something that if you only base it on military, the day will come when questions will be raised. Why is Israel, let's say in the words of the world, occupying Gaza? The problem with areas where you don't have Jewish towns, on one hand, is really it makes it more difficult to control, like controlling the Egyptian border without having Gush Katif. Now, Gush Katif was not built by the right. Gush Katif was built by the left. It was built by Yigal Allon. It was built exactly because they knew that you cannot control the Egyptian border for long without massive presence of Jews in the area that help control this border. The same goes, was done by the left in the Sinai Peninsula. Where did we put all our towns in the Sinai Peninsula? We put them in the Sinai, but in front of Gaza, in a way that keeps Gaza disconnected and enables not to bring all this terror into Gaza. This Yamit, as a city, was just south of Gaza. So this logic was existing in Israel already in the 60s. And really, it's not supposed to change. It's the same logic. So I don't think that talking about Israeli settlements in Gaza now, at the moment, in the middle of the war, with our soldiers fighting there, or with the Biden administration, it's the right discussion now. But in the long term, looking at what is needed to secure Israel for generations to come, as we always speak about in IDSF, this is a serious discussion. And this discussion was done in the 60s. And also after we handed Sinai, we understood that we need these towns inside Gaza. And also, I must say, we don't know what will happen in Gaza, talking about today, people say, wow, you have 2 million Palestinians in Gaza. How can we put Jews there as well? Well, I don't think there are going to be 2 million Palestinians anymore. I think there will be huge migration from Gaza. So in the long term, the discussion we need as a society to have looking at the long term.
Thank you. So, if anyone has seen the headlines in the news today, you'll see that the Mossad chief and the CIA are beginning discussions again about a hostage deal. So, I encourage everyone to join our briefing tomorrow, where we have a senior member of the Mossad who is going to join the briefing. So the timing is very crucial. Please, everyone, join tomorrow. We'll conclude with one final question for today, and that is, as long as the PA is alive and well in Judean Samaria, whose choice is it? Whose actual decision is it for what happens the day after in Gaza? Meaning, as much as the Israeli government has an interest, as much as the US has an interest, at the end of the day, who makes the decision? Can the PA just swoop in and do whatever they want, regardless of world opinion, regardless of what the IDF or the Israeli government might want to see? The question, maybe both of you can address that.
I think it's Israel's decision.
Yeah.
It's Israel's decision, and Israel needs to decide who will run everyday life in Gaza. It's only Israel's decision. The US might press the Palestinians, but at the end of the day, it's an Israeli decision. I can say that in the last poll in Judean and Samaria, Palestinian poll, 88% of the Palestinian society in Judean and Samaria want to dismantle the Palestinian Authority. So if where they control, people want to dismantle them, what sense does it make to bring them to a place where everybody is Hamas? They will kill them instantly. They cannot control this place, and they shouldn't control it because they are no different of Hamas. Are the same problem.
I completely agree, and I think, look, whoever will make the decision should be the same side who is a direct beneficiary. That's mean the directly involved. This is the state, that the party who is making the decision should be the party who is directly affected by the decision. There has been too long where both Israelis and Palestinians were out of the game at all, and the decision were made, across the ocean. I don't think most Palestinians in Gaza want the Palestinian Authority, and they would not go back if Israel doesn't let them, and if most Palestinians don't let them. And number two, just think about the Iran deal in 2015. It really reminds you of, the Munich Agreement, 1938. The only countries were not in the table were the countries the decision was made on them, Czechoslovakia, etc. And speaking about the Iran deal, neither Israel nor Arab countries were part of the deal. It was between the United States, Iran, and world powers. And the parties who directly were affected, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, they were not even at the table. And I think the days where you just decide above the heads of people in the Middle East are over. The decision should be in Israel's hands. And, we should not go back to our safe zone, our comfort zone. We should think in an put forth some imagination, some creative thinking. We can't let the Palestinian Authority go back to Gaza. And I think everybody understands that now.
Thank you so much. Or, General, do you have any parting words for us for the day?
I think that really the biggest challenge I see at the moment, or two challenges. One external is really maintaining the support, especially of the US, and understanding that this war is long. It's going to be very, very long. And we cannot be constrained by time. It's not going to take 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month. It's going to be a long war. And I feel that this understanding is not clear enough in the administration. And this is the responsibility of the Prime Minister, the cabinet, to really convey this understanding. And the other thing is maintain unity, because as the war prolongs, you see parts of the media and some groups that are starting again to talk politics instead of really focusing on supporting our soldiers and our cabinet in order to win the war. And this is the bad. We have to fight this and keep unity. really focus on our soldiers, and they need to win decisively this war.
Or Yissachar, Brigadier General Amir Avivi, thank you so much for this briefing. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning in. Tomorrow we have a very special briefing with a former senior Mossad officer. We can't show you his face, we can't share with you his name, but what he has to share is super important. So please join us tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Stay safe, everyone. Stay strong. Take care.